Hello everyone, welcome to Hoovies Garage, and it's a very exciting day because it's new hoopty time. I bought the cheapest Fiat 500 in the USA and it's just arrived here at the Wizards. And look at it, it's beautiful. 2013 Fiat 500 Abarth. And it's got a mismatched wheel, but it's not too bad. Let's take a look inside, and I have a red skull. Seriously? What the? Oh yeah. Oh, come on. Seriously? Earlier this month, Fiat announced that they would no longer be offering the 500, this little hot hatch, in the United States after the 2019 model year. I guess you can call me a Fiat 500 enthusiast because I've owned two of them in the past, and I was pretty distraught when I heard the news. I was so distraught, in fact, that I went out and found the cheapest Fiat 500 Abarth in the USA that you could possibly buy and bought it. Turns out it was the cheapest Abarth because it had been attacked by a dog, among other things. But if you go back to 2011, back when Fiat was first coming back to the United States after a long break, last time they were here before 2011 was 1984 when they left in disgrace. People remembered how unreliable the cars were, and jokes like "Fix It Again, Tony," F-I-A-T, endured through the decades. But when Fiat came back with this little 500, the overall reception was really positive. Nowadays, little hatchbacks aren't really small anymore. They've been supersized, like the Volkswagen Golf that's 15 inches bigger than this Abarth, and even the Mini Cooper, the smallest Mini Cooper, is still 6 inches longer, 5 or 6 inches longer than this Abarth. They're giant, but this is not. It's a little bitty car, but it has a ton of personality. Pricing on these new 500s was really reasonable as well. The Sport and Pop models, they started at about $16,000, dirt cheap. So when this thing was new, I was sorely tempted to buy one, sorely tempted. It was the first time in my lifetime that I could ever buy something new with some Italian spice that was also affordable. Even Jay Leno got one, the second one ever made apparently, a sport model, but even he quickly dumped it once you could get your hands on an Abarth in mid-2012. They were a lot more expensive. I think they started at $22,000, but even at that price, I was really tempted. Thank goodness, though, that I waited. This new Fiat 500 Abarth, though, is a very strange combination of names and companies. The body, obviously, is Italian. It's a Fiat 500. But the name Abarth comes from an Austrian tuner who loved little Italian cars, and he would tune them, basically hot rod them, similar to what AMG was doing with Mercedes before Mercedes bought them out. And similar to that, Fiat bought Abarth and used them as a racing brand, but eventually the name was kind of tossed away in the early 80s, until recently when the Abarth name came back on Fiat's new line of performance vehicles, and some motorcycles too, other weird things. The strange part of all this, though, is the engine. It wasn't really made by Fiat, it wasn't put together by Fiat, but it was actually dreamed up by American engineers at Chrysler. Chrysler had gone bankrupt a few years before this, and Fiat bought a majority stake in the company and tasked the engineers at Chrysler to put together their own turbocharged multi-air engine for this new Fiat Abarth. It also ended up in the Dodge Dart and later in the Jeep Renegade. And what the engineers at Chrysler did was kind of what a hot rodder would do. They took all their favorite bits, their favorite turbo, they got the multi-air injection, which is a weird throttleless system. The air intake's actually completely controlled by the valves that lift as much as it needs to get the perfect amount of air in, and created this engine for themselves. In Europe, the Abarth, it certainly looked the part. It looked just like this, but it only had 130 horsepower, while this had a lot more spunk to it, 160 horsepower. Pretty good, but what people mostly remember about these and what makes them so much fun is the exhaust. noises this thing thing makes sounds like an Italian car, like something exotic. The pops and the bangs, the good kind of pops and bangs, not the I'm broken kind of pops and bangs. And the seating position is really weird for a small car. I like it though. A lot of people complained about it because it's up high, kind of like an SUV, or like you're sitting on a bar stool or a normal chair, but I like it because I'm proportioned like a giraffe. I have long legs and it gives me plenty of thigh support so that I can go down to the pedal rather than out to the pedal. Even though the Abarth doesn't have the horsepower to match, say, a Golf GTI or a Mini Cooper S, I like these way better. To me, it's just more comfortable. Also, it has way more personality. This interior with this lipstick red, still Italian smelling interior. The leather, when they were new, they smelled really Italian. Now it's a little used, but it still has that smell. And it's not just the smell, it's just the personality, the overall personality of the car. It just seems so happy. Happy like the original Volkswagen Beetle or a Mazda Miata. That's what it feels like. The car's happy. I'm happy. It's great. I really can't believe I bought one of these new considering how affordable they were, but I'm glad I waited. I was super tempted. I remember the commercials where the Fiats, they're all going like around Portofino and different Italian places, plunking in the ocean and then seemingly popping up in the United States. And then there's the one with the model with the accent and all that. That was really good marketing. But I think Fiat way over forecasted their sales and way oversupplied the dealers, especially in 2013, which is what this year is, because they didn't sell them all. There were so many leftover Fiat 500s in 2014 that they were selling them for big discounts. I remember there being huge discounts, $5,000 or more on a new Fiat 500 that's 20-something thousand dollars, and that tanked the value of the used ones as well. The first one I actually bought for myself was a 2012 in 2014, and it had a $25,000 MSRP, and I got it for $14,000. It only had 10,000 miles. It was perfect. It was barely used. I sold that one in 6 months for about $12,000, and then shortly after that, I bought a convertible version with the Beats audio, the most loaded Abarth you could get. Knew that probably was close to a $30,000 sticker, and I bought it once again for $14,000, and I think I sold it not too long after I got it for close to what I paid for it. Not bad on that one, but the depreciation is huge percentage-wise. It's huge. And they've only gotten cheaper. Like this one. This one was only $4,000 for a running and driving Fiat 500 Abarth. Now, admittedly, it's a pretty rough one. Clearly, this one's been neglected. I don't think it was with the original owner, though, who bought it new in 2014. Keep in mind, this is a 2013. On the Carfax, it shows being delivered to the lot in June or July of 13 and not being sold until June of 2014. So a year on the lot. The guy had it up until very recently, where it sold at a used car lot, and the second owner had it for about 3 months, and then it was repossessed. And I think in that 3 months is when all this bad stuff happened, like this red skull shifter and this e-brake handle, which I think the shifter came out of necessity, because if this e-brake handle got chewed up that much, I imagine a much more tempting candidate, from what I assume or I hope was a dog, was the leather shifter right here. He must have really liked the taste of Italian leather. It's also scratched up here like he was scratching. He really wanted out of this thing, and it is super torn up. It's hard to believe a car like this has gotten to this point. I guess they're so cheap now, but it seemed like just a few years ago, and it was a few years ago, that I was driving basically brand new examples, and now they're very used examples. These things are aging, and clearly, I guess I'm aging too. I don't want to accept that. And then there's the mood lighting orbiting around the sunroof. I have no idea what someone was thinking with that, but it flashes all the time. I don't know. Okay, that turns it off, but then it turns on the map light. So how do I turn it off all the way? Okay, there. It's so stupid, but it is stupid funny. I don't know if I'll get rid of it because it's so goofy. As far as $4,000 cars go, it's really not that bad, actually. There is a little bit of vibration under heavy acceleration, and the air conditioning doesn't work, but for $4,000, I can't complain, especially for an Italian car. That's really good for an Italian car. Admittedly, my car isn't in the best shape, but if Fiat really does discontinue the 500 and doesn't bring a new generation out in a few years, this may be a hot collector's item. Even in this shape. It hurt me to say that because it's not true. Mine will never be collectible, but you could get a nice one. If you go on Auto Trader right now, which link below is my column on autotrader.com/oversteer, you can find really nice Abarths for under $10,000. Really $7,000, $8,000 would get you a nice Abarth. And I can't think of a better deal for an enthusiast to buy right now. You get all this personality and that exhaust note, and it's super fun to drive. And as of right now, the supply is still plentiful. But now that they're cheap, they're getting in the hands of people that let animals go crazy inside and chew them to pieces. So the supply is going to get more and more scarce. Really, you should buy one while you still can. Thank you for watching.